On this day in history, we remember the remarkable individuals who shaped our world. Welcome to Who Died Today in History, where we honor their legacies. From artists to leaders, their impact lives on. If you find their stories meaningful, like, subscribe, and hit the bell to stay connected. Jackie Gleason, one of America's most iconic entertainers, died of colon and liver cancer on June 24, 1987, at the age of 71. His death marked the end of an era in television and comedy, closing the chapter on a career that shaped mid-century American humor. Gleason's passing was natural, but it symbolized more than personal mortality. It signified the fading influence of classic variety and sketch comedy as newer forms of entertainment began to dominate. Gleason rose to fame during the golden age of television in the 1950s, most famously through his creation and portrayal of Ralph Kramden in The Honeymooners. With his booming voice, commanding physical presence, and impeccable comedic timing, Gleason captured the working-class struggle with both heart and hilarity. His brand of humor, broad, emotional, and deeply rooted in character, resonated with post-war audiences navigating the complexities of urban life, masculinity, and aspiration in an industrializing America. By the time of his death, Gleason had already receded from the limelight, but the reaction was one of deep national nostalgia. Obituaries and tributes poured in, emphasizing not just his talent, but his cultural significance. His passing was not just the loss of a man, but the quiet closing of an entertainment style defined by live studio audiences, monologues, and big band orchestras. His larger-than-life persona had come to symbolize a form of showmanship increasingly rare in the modern entertainment landscape. Gleason's death also called attention to the physical toll of fame. Known for his extravagant lifestyle, lavish spending, heavy drinking, and chain smoking, he embodied the old-school entertainer whose success was often matched by personal excess. In this way, his death mirrored the generational shift from unfiltered celebrity toward more curated, health-conscious public figures. Today, Jackie Gleason lives on through reruns, tributes, and pop culture references. Statues, named theaters, and digital archives keep his work accessible to new generations. His famous catchphrases, "And away we go," and "To the moon, Alice," echo not just through laughter but through memory. Ultimately, Gleason's death reminds us how entertainers help define the spirit of their time. When they leave us, it's not only a farewell to a person, but to a piece of shared cultural identity, immortalized not just in film reels, but in the hearts of those who laughed along. Eli Wallach, the consummate character actor whose career spanned over 6 decades, passed away from natural causes on June 24, 2014, at the age of 98. His death marked the end of a towering presence in American cinema, one whose versatility and depth transcended leading man status and left an indelible mark on Hollywood's golden and post-golden ages. Wallach's passing reflected the gradual vanishing of a generation of actors who had bridged classical stage training with mainstream cinematic success. Born in 1915 to Polish-Jewish immigrants in Brooklyn, Wallach trained at the University of Texas and later at the Actors Studio under Lee Strasberg. He became a foundational figure in method acting, a style that reshaped 20th century performance. His most iconic roles, Tuco in The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, 1966, and Calvera in The Magnificent Seven, 1960, revealed a performer who could inhabit morally ambiguous characters with charm, wit, and intensity. Wallach's death was a quiet moment in a fast-paced Hollywood increasingly driven by blockbuster spectacles and youth-focused stardom. Yet his passing sparked thoughtful reflection across the industry and among cinephiles. As one of the last surviving actors from the era of Sergio Leone's spaghetti westerns, His death symbolized the passing of a cinematic sensibility rooted in character development, grit, and emotional realism, values often overshadowed by digital effects and franchise formulas in modern filmmaking. The immediate consequences of his death were not seismic in political or global terms, but culturally, his absence was felt like the fading of an old, wise storyteller. Tributes from peers and critics emphasized not just his body of work, but the dignity and dedication with which he approached his craft well into his 90s. His longevity served as a testament to enduring passion for the arts, in contrast to an era often marked by fleeting fame. Wallach's legacy continues in film retrospectives, acting curricula, and commemorations in cinema history. His characters, complex, flawed, yet human, are preserved in celluloid and digital archives, accessible to generations yet to come. His death invites reflection on how artists shape our collective memory, not through explosive exits, but through consistent excellence. In honoring Wallach, we honor the unsung archetype, the craftsman actor whose power lay not in celebrity, but in the truth he brought to each role. Through him, we see how mortality may end a life, but not the influence of a deeply lived and skillfully portrayed story.
I put a lot of effort into researching and creating these stories every day. If you enjoy this content, please consider subscribing, liking, and leaving a comment. Your support means a lot. Also, I recently opened channel memberships for those who want to support even more closely. Thank you for being here.
Billy Drago, born William Eugene Burroughs Jr., passed away on June 24, 2019, at the age of 73 due to complications from a stroke. Known for his chilling portrayals of villains, particularly in Brian De Palma's The Untouchables, 1987, where he played the icy assassin Frank Nitti, Drago's death marked the quiet departure of an actor who embodied the darker side of cinema's moral spectrum during a period when anti-heroes and sinister charisma captivated audiences. Drago's death was natural, and unlike the dramatic personas he inhabited on screen, his passing was relatively subdued in the public eye. Yet it represented a generational shift in Hollywood, a fading era where character actors built cult reputations through genre films, television thrillers, and roles that challenged conventional leading man aesthetics. Drago thrived in the margins, a figure who did not conform to Hollywood's polished image, but instead carved a niche through intensity, presence, and an uncanny ability to unsettle viewers. His work reflected the values of his time, particularly the late 20th century fascination with moral ambiguity. In a post-Vietnam, post-Watergate America, figures like Drago's villains captured the nation's complicated feelings about power, corruption, and the fragility of righteousness. He personified the idea that evil isn't always loud. It can be quiet, calculating, even charming. The immediate impact of his death was not met with headlines or national mourning, but within the world of genre film and cult cinema, tributes poured in from fans and peers who recognized his distinctive contribution. His death amplified his legend in niche circles, where he is remembered not just as a villain, but as a craftsman of dread, a man who made his characters linger in the audience's memory long after the credits rolled. Drago's legacy is preserved in film festivals, retrospectives, and the continued admiration of horror and thriller communities. His performances live on in streaming libraries, physical media, and pop culture references, symbolizing the importance of character actors in shaping a film's emotional impact. In remembering Billy Drago, we are reminded that legacy is not measured only in awards or fame, but in the emotional textures actors bring to the stories we tell. His life and death highlight the enduring power of performance to explore fear, power, and humanity's shadow, offering a mirror to our collective anxieties and fascination with mortality. Shifty Shellshock, born Seth Brooks Binzer, passed away on June 24, 2024, at the age of 49. Known as the frontman of Crazy Town, a band that soared to fame in the early 2000s with their hit Butterfly, Binzer's death was reported as drug-related, a tragic but sadly unsurprising conclusion for an artist who publicly struggled with addiction for much of his life. His passing sheds light on the music industry's darker undercurrents, particularly how fame, trauma, and substance abuse often intertwine. Emerging from the rap-rock scene that reflected a turbulent cultural moment in late 1990s and early 2000s America, Binzer was both a product and a casualty of that era's extremes. With Crazy Town, he helped shape a sound that combined hip-hop attitude with punk angst, music that mirrored the era's rebellion, confusion, and yearning for identity in the shadow of post-Columbine disillusionment and pre-9/11 unease. However, behind the swagger lay a deeply troubled soul, wrestling with personal demons exacerbated by sudden stardom. The circumstances of his death, though not violent in the sense of a public spectacle, were emblematic of the silent violence addiction inflicts on countless lives. In an era where mental health is more openly discussed but still often inadequately treated, his story reflects the challenges of fame without sufficient support. His appearances on reality shows like Celebrity Rehab exposed the raw, often painful battle that so many entertainers endure behind the scenes. The immediate consequence of his death was a wave of reflection within the music community, particularly among fans of nu metal, rap rock, and those who came of age in the early 2000s. Though Crazy Town never replicated the massive success of Butterfly, Binzer remained a symbol of a fleeting yet culturally potent era in popular music. His death prompted renewed conversations about the lasting effects of addiction, the pressure of public life, and the need for compassion over judgment. In the broader cultural memory, artists like Shifty Shellshock are often immortalized through their most iconic works. Butterfly continues to be used in films, memes, and nostalgic playlists, inadvertently keeping his voice alive for new generations. Through music, documentary, and online remembrance, Binzer joins a long line of artists whose turbulent lives and premature deaths remind us of the fragility of fame and the human yearning for connection, even when the spotlight fades. Brian Keith, the ruggedly charismatic actor best known for his role as Uncle Bill in the classic television series Family Affair, died by suicide on June 24, 1997, at the age of 75. His death by self-inflicted gunshot came just 2 months after the suicide of his daughter Daisy, a devastating loss that reportedly plunged him into deep depression. Coupled with declining health due to lung cancer and emphysema, Keith's passing was a heartbreaking end to a life marked by professional success and personal sorrow. Keith's death reflected a generational silence around mental health, particularly among men of his era. Born in 1921, he came of age during World War II, serving as a U.S. Marine gunner. Like many veterans of that time, emotional stoicism was considered a virtue. He carried that same strength into Hollywood, where his authoritative presence and warm demeanor made him a beloved father figure on screen. Yet behind that image lay the complexities of a man facing immense private grief, physical pain, and emotional isolation. The immediate reaction to Keith's death was one of collective mourning and reflection, especially from those who had grown up watching him on television. His role in Family Affair had resonated with audiences in the 1960s and 70s, during a time when American families were redefining themselves amid social change. His gentle but firm portrayal of a bachelor, suddenly tasked with raising 3 orphans, served as a comforting counterbalance to the cultural upheavals of the era. Keith's death, though tragic, underscored an important cultural conversation about the toll of unresolved trauma and the stigma surrounding mental health, especially among older generations. Unlike the mythologizing that often follows the deaths of younger celebrities, Keith's passing prompted quieter contemplation, a reminder of the fragility that can lie beneath even the most solid exteriors. In remembering Brian Keith, we immortalize not only the actor, but the values he came to represent. Strength tempered by kindness, resilience forged in hardship, and the quiet dignity of those who carry burdens unseen. His legacy lives on through reruns of his shows, tributes from co-stars, and the continued relevance of his roles in shaping the archetype of the modern American father figure. As with many cultural icons, his story invites us to look beyond the screen and consider the deeply human realities of loss, love, and memory. Paul Winchell, a pioneer in both entertainment and science, died of natural causes on June 24, 2005, at the age of 82. Best known as the voice of the beloved character Tigger in Disney's Winnie the Pooh films, and as a master ventriloquist behind dummies like Jerry Mahoney, Winchell's legacy straddled two vastly different worlds: the joyful escapism of children's television and the innovative drive of American invention. His death marked the quiet passing of a figure who embodied the boundless curiosity and multidimensional talent of post-war America. Winchell's career flourished during an era when television was transforming American households. The 1950s and 60s saw entertainers become surrogate family members, their presence as regular and reassuring as the evening news. Winchell's ventriloquist act was a staple of early TV, offering families laughter in a time that still bore the weight of World War II's aftermath and the anxiety of the Cold War. His work reflected the values of the era: wholesome entertainment, ingenuity, and optimism. But Paul Winchell was more than a performer. He held over 30 patents, including one for an early artificial heart, predating even some of the work of famed surgeon Dr. Robert Jarvik. That an entertainer would also make serious contributions to medical science reflected the spirit of American post-war innovation, a belief that boundaries between disciplines could be crossed with imagination and willpower. His work in science, though often overshadowed by his entertainment career, added to the complexity of his legacy. The immediate reaction to his death was subdued but deeply respectful. Fans mourned the loss of a childhood voice, Tigger's boundless joy, a contrast to the more reserved man behind it. His death did not cause seismic cultural shifts, but it prompted a re-evaluation of the overlooked genius of performers who contributed more than just entertainment. Winchell's story reveals humanity's longing to be remembered for more than one thing, to be both artist and thinker, clown and creator. In remembering him, we reflect on the richness of individual legacy and the many ways people contribute to society. Through reruns, animation, biographies, and archives of his inventions, Winchell lives on, not just as Tigger, but as a symbol of creative possibility. His life reminds us that to be remembered is not merely to have lived, but to have given something uniquely lasting to the world. David Tomlinson, the quintessential English gentleman of mid-20th century cinema, passed away peacefully of natural causes on June 24, 2000, at the age of 83. Best known for his roles in Disney classics such as Mary Poppins, Bedknobs and Broomsticks, and The Love Bug, Tomlinson's death marked the end of an era of post-war British charm in Hollywood storytelling. Though his passing did not generate the media frenzy often reserved for flashier stars, it stirred nostalgia for a cinematic age built on whimsy, warmth, and wit. Born into a Britain defined by tradition and class rigidity, Tomlinson's life and career mirrored the evolution of English society through the 20th century. His screen persona, often a befuddled, well-meaning patriarch, reflected a nation grappling with its own transformation after World War II. In Mary Poppins, his portrayal of Mr. Banks, a stern father softened by the magic of a nanny and the laughter of his children, captured the post-war shift from formality to emotional openness, mirroring the societal embrace of gentler values. Tomlinson's personal life was marked by both comedy and tragedy. In 1943, he endured a devastating loss when his first wife, Mary Lindsay Hitting, took her own life along with their 2 young sons by jumping from a hotel window. This private sorrow stood in stark contrast to his public image and is often overlooked in the celebration of his legacy. His resilience and later happy family life underscore a theme of quiet strength common to his era, a generation shaped by war, loss, and perseverance. The immediate reaction to his death was one of subdued reverence. Though he had largely retired from the screen by the 1980s, his legacy remained vividly alive through perennial Disney broadcasts. His passing didn't shift history's course, but it did prompt a re-examination of the understated contributions of character actors who quietly shaped cultural memory. In remembering David Tomlinson, we confront the nature of legacy itself. Not all who shape hearts and minds do so from center stage. We immortalize such figures in film reels, retrospectives, and the continued laughter of new generations discovering their work. His death reminds us that cultural impact is not always about revolution or notoriety. It can be about consistent joy, quiet grace, and timeless storytelling. Carlos Gardel, the legendary voice of tango, met a sudden and tragic end on June 24, 1935, in a plane crash at the height of his career. At just 44 years old, Gardel was killed when his aircraft collided with another on the runway in Medellin, Colombia. The accident not only took his life, but also claimed the lives of many in his entourage, instantly transforming the singer into a martyr of Latin American culture. His death, violent and abrupt, became inseparable from his myth, freezing him in time as the eternally young and romantic voice of tango. Gardel's death reflected the tensions and aspirations of the early 20th century. Tango, once born in the immigrant neighborhoods of Buenos Aires, had by the 1930s become an international phenomenon, thanks largely to Gardel's recordings and films. His persona, elegant, emotional, yet rooted in the struggles of the working class, embodied a cultural movement trying to reconcile tradition with modern identity. That he died while on tour across Latin America, spreading tango's influence, only heightened the symbolic weight of his passing. The immediate aftermath of Gardel's death was one of mass mourning. In Colombia, thousands poured into the streets to pay tribute. His body was flown to New York, then to Rio de Janeiro, Montevideo, and finally Buenos Aires, with public displays of grief at every stop. Each transfer of his remains became a symbolic act of unifying nations around a shared artistic hero. In Argentina, his death created a cultural void, one that would be filled with near religious reverence. A popular saying soon emerged: "Gardel sings better every day," capturing how his posthumous reputation only grew with time. Gardel's death did not shift global politics, but it profoundly shaped cultural identity across Latin America. In dying young and tragically, he joined a pantheon of artists, like James Dean or Buddy Holly, whose brief lives left an outsized impact. He became not just a singer, but a symbol of elegance, nostalgia, and national pride. Ultimately, Carlos Gardel's legacy lives on through his music, films, and the countless murals, statues, and streets bearing his name. His life and untimely death underscore humanity's longing to preserve beauty and passion beyond the reach of time, proving that while mortality claims the body, memory, when charged with art, can make legends eternal.